everyone. My name is Jaden. I'm on the Vancouver Startup Week team. I'd like to take a moment to acknowledge that we are grateful to be virtually gathered on Indigenous land, regardless where you are joining us from. I am grateful to be on the traditional, ancestral, and unceded territory of the Musqueam, Tsleil-Waututh, and Squamish peoples, and I am privileged to live, work, and play on these lands. And first, I'd like to thank for you to joining us at VSW 2021 and welcome you to Debt versus Equity, 10 questions every entrepreneur must ask, hosted by OKR Financial. This session is part of the VSW Growth Track and is proudly supported by Innovate BC. Innovate BC is a Crown agency that provides small businesses around the province with funding, business coaching, and educational content. They're helping entrepreneurs and founders start and scale their businesses and adapt to changes brought on by COVID-19. If you're interested and looking for support for your business, make sure to stop by their booth and learn more about how they can help. I also want to thank OKR Financial for being an event partner and also a sponsor. VSW could not happen without the continuous support from our community sponsors. If you have any questions for our speakers throughout the session, please post them in the Q&A tab in the Whova session. You can also upvote questions to increase their priority. I'll now pass the mic over to the speakers and we can begin the session.
Awesome. Well, thank you for that. Let me get my screen share going here. Hopefully you guys can see this. That work? You all see that? Fantastic.
Works great.
I have lost my chat features though. Let me pull this back up just so I can see, because I feel like that's going to be important in a call like this today. Actually, I can't see the chat, so maybe I'll just have someone from VSW or Meg, if you can see the chat, maybe just interrupt me if someone has a question or comment. Awesome. Happy to be here today. Happy to talk about this topic. It's fairly near and dear to my heart, what we do over at OKR Financial. So I want to kind of walk you through a bit about our story, and then talk a little bit about all the different questions that were kind of brought and proposed from our marketing team to me of items that you guys have questions that are frequently asked about. With an event like this, especially on Zoom, where it's much easier than a crowd for you to raise a hand and ask a question. Thoroughly encourage any questions you want to have, and I'll get maybe someone from my team to interrupt me with any questions that do come up. I love questions, and I think that I know I talk fast, I'll put it that way, so I will rip through this pretty quickly, so questions are definitely welcome. If you either didn't understand something or you want to pause and kind of dive into something a little deeper, we have an hour. I don't know if we'll use it all, but I'll try to answer whatever questions that do come up. So we'll start off a bit about, who are we? What does OKR do? We're really in the venture debt space right now. And really what we're trying to promote for a lot of early stage companies is the ability to grow in a non-dilutive manner and get funding early enough in a debt form. So you're de-risking the deal so that when we come along as an equity investor, either ourselves or another VC, that there's more for you, the entrepreneur, that you are actually going to take off the table cash at a point where you think you're getting a fair valuation after you've done a lot of the work, the sweat equity work and all that kind of stuff that brings you to a point where you actually feel now is a good time to do that, as opposed to doing an early stage when you maybe give it up more than you would need to, when there are ways to get free money or to use debt to help grow you to that point already. So yeah, non-dilutive financing, that's really what we're here to talk about on the debt side, and then we can talk a bit on the equity side too, with our model, kind of a hybrid approach as to how we do invest in companies. But the overarching kind of story here is that, we don't come from finance boardroom where it was like a theory of here's how we can make some money on spread. Let's go build a fund around this. The fund really started in its first iteration with our two managing partners were invested in a deal that had an exit. They couldn't pull the money out of the funds initially, and they wanted to leave some funds into the company in the form of a loan. And the company said, well, we have these shred credits, banks won't look at it. Will you lend against it for us? And it kind of started off like that, as a little lending club. They did that deal, thought, wow, this is great. Is there any other companies that have these assets that banks may not be able to help lend against? And of course, there were a few, and 10, 12, 13 loans later, the investment club said, maybe this is more of a fund idea. Instead of emailing each other and saying, do you want to participate? We'll go this way. So really the underlying story here is that this is born out of necessity. We saw an opportunity that came across our desk and said, hey, maybe there's something here for us to help out with. And then that evolved, of course, when you start dealing with companies and giving them money. They ask, well, can you help us with money over here and over here and over here? And that expanded our offering into kind of a triple offering, which we'll talk about in a second. But the first question people have is, why is debt better than equity? Explain to me why I should be taking debt rather than equity. And this is kind of the concept I initially talked about before, which is, when are you going to raise equity and what valuation you can do so, and why are you doing it at that point? Well, if you are kind of in phase one here, in the concept pre-revenue stage, say you're loosely worth $1 million in your mind, or maybe in our mind too, but you need 300 grand to go build your MVP, to build your app, your prototype, whatever it may be, to get off the ground. You need 300 grand. Well, of course, there's a couple ways you can do it. You can go raise equity. Maybe you go tap your friends and family on the shoulder. Hey, we're doing this. Would you like to help us out? And you can raise 300 grand, passing the hat around that way, and you give up 30% of your company. Or you can try to find some grants, which is really what I want to really focus on today. Grants and utilizing debt to kind of leverage that. Get 300 grand that way. Keep your equity so that hopefully, if your MVP goes well and you're worth $3 million in 6 months or a year, that 300 grand is now worth 10% as opposed to 30. So you're actually saving some of that equity for future raises down the road. If you have a product or a company, and I hope that you do believe in it's going to grow, you want to save that, right? The goal isn't to give it all away in the first round to get to the finish line or to get to the MVP. It's to save that powder so that when it comes time to a Series A or Series B, you have powder and equity to give away at that point. Well, not give away, but to raise with at that point, and really utilize it in a much more efficient manner because you're getting the value you think you deserve from that. So how do you do this? Well, there's kind of 3 ways, and this is what I want to talk a bit about on our side. Venture debt, and I'll talk about this later. It's a combination of equity, debt, in different manners is what we're trying to do. The end goal here is to find a way to get you the runway you need, or the budget you need to have to get off the ground, in whatever way possible, but in the most efficient manner based off of what assets you have. We'll talk about assets in a second here, but again, here, similar concept with that 300 grand, on $1 million valuation. How do you do it? But what I want to try to pivot to here is, it's not just one or the other. You don't have to do just equity or just debt. You can come to, get an IRAP grant or get a grant through, or even tax refund through Shred, and that might cover 150 of the 300. And then you may go do 50 grand in equity and 100 grand from us in debt. You can mix and match these combinations. You're not set in one or the other. And there is a concept called WACC, for those of you who are finance nerdy enough to look it up. Weighted average cost of capital. It's something you should keep your eye on, right? And that's the important part. Is it's easy to calculate debt, what it costs you. It's a little more of an exercise to calculate what the equity will cost you. And you can do it, but the overarching thought to keep in mind is, well, how much is the equity going to be worth in my mind in a year or 2 years when I actually want to do that? And that's the real cost there, right? So it may be cheap now because it's free money coming in the door, but if that's, like I said before, 10% versus 30% at a $3 million valuation, that's real money, and that's a real cost that could have been paid off in interest. So you want to look at the holistic picture of everything together, and we want to look and make sure we have the concept of, okay, what levers can I pull quickly and easily? What can I delay myself on a little bit? And how do I bring that total cost of capital down? No questions so far, I'm assuming, Meg? Just a quick check-in, as in a casual manner here? None?
No, we're good to go here,
Awesome.
so DJ.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Okay. So when to use debt? So there's times when you have to use debt. I should say have to, but it's easier to use debt based off of what you're doing in your business and your timing and your structure. So if you're pre-revenue, sometimes it's the only option. Sometimes you have companies that come in and go, well, we're only going to invest in companies that have had, 6-month track record of going to market or something like that. So if you're really, really early stage, it could be, beyond your friends and family, the only option could be debt. So that's one option. Balance sheet assets. So sometimes you have assets that you might not be able to use, you might not think you'd be able to use. So non-traditional assets like, grants and Shred credits, MRR financing. So if you have some cash flow, so say you are a SaaS company that has, 6 to 8 months of stabilized revenue with a known churn and a known, CAC and everything else involved in there, that could be time where we could securitize that kind of stuff. Really, it's a scenario where if you don't have a lot of bank assets like land or something like that, it could be time to use alternative debt. That's an option. This one's kind of the biggest one we see, speed of capital. If you need funds quickly, equity diligence can take a bit of time. And we can talk a bit about this later with, how to pick a partner and all this kind of stuff. It's not uncommon for VCs to starve you out based off of your runway. So it could be a scenario in which you could be in the middle of doing your Series A raise, and you're working with ABC VC company, and ABC VC company knows your balance sheet and your financial statements, and they know that you have 3 months of runway or 2.5 months of runway, and they might try to delay that term sheet for 4 months, knowing that in month 3 you're probably going, oh man, I gotta sign this term sheet, and grind you down that way. So you can use debt as a release valve in that scenario. I would always say, if you're going to go into an equity raise, keep in mind how much runway you have, because sometimes people will use that to their advantage based off what they're seeing in diligence. So that's another option too, is to use debt to kind of bridge your runway until you do an equity raise. Is another way to do it. Or again, kind of in the chart we showed before, if you think there's going to be material valuation inflection point in the next 12 to 24 months, like material, like triples, quads up your valuation, you want to be cognizant of giving away that equity and trying to find alternative solutions for capital to drive you to that valuation point, so that then you can give up less to get the same amount of equity, or give up the same amount of equity, get a lot more cash coming to the door to do a growth phase. When to use equity? The first one's my favorite. If you have this problem, please come see me. It's a gasoline on the fire capital. So if you are in, to use that SaaS model example before, you're a SaaS company, you have a product that's out in the market, you're in, version 2 of it or whatever, and you know that you're doing LinkedIn ads or Facebook ads, and it costs you X, and your lifetime value is Y, and Y is significantly greater than X. So you just want to just drive the marketing dollars in. That's something we can help do, or my standing VC can help do. But that's a great time to use equity, because it's a clear model at that point. It's very easy to understand what's going on. It's been de-risked to a level that it's time to do that. The next one would be the opposite. Before, you just don't have any assets. You don't have any grants, tax credits. You have to get equity. You have to pass the hat around to friends and family. You're going to go try to find a VC specifically in the space you're in who understands that maybe in med tech, there's a 3-year ramp up with no revenue as you try to go through the process of developing the product and getting it approved by government agencies and bodies, and that would be the only way you can do it. But that will kind of lead me to the next one: strategic partners. If you have an opportunity to bring an upstream or downstream partner in who could potentially be an exit for you, great opportunity to bring them in and have them be an equity partner. So if it's either someone you're selling your stuff to, or someone you're buying your equipment from to produce, but they're interested in what you're doing, not a bad time to kind of dip your toe in the water and see how working with them is, right? If you do an early stage with them, because they could be, again, your exit partner, or your if you don't want to exit, that's fair, but if you want to exit, that could be an easy way to figure out someone who you want to work with, and a fast way for them to do diligence down the road as they see you grow. The last one, I kind of alluded to, maybe medtech's a prime example of this. If you have a long development cycle in your product, so you are years away from pinpointing that algorithm or pinpointing that med device, you need patient capital, and patient capital sometimes is the only way it comes in equity, because debt guys will, they want payment, they want to have their fund that yields something they got to pay their investors, or they have something that needs to go down the line where they need to pass down that revenue stream. If you don't have a revenue stream for 3 or 4 years, this might be the only way, or you can get really patient capital in safes or convertibles and stuff like that. But this would be an opportunity for you to look at that as equity is probably one of your better options. Factors to consider, when to use debt. Well, first off, debt's non-dilutive, and I know I keep hammering that, but I hope those of you, and I don't know if there are breakout sessions or something after, those of you who had exits, have gone through this, how important it is at the end of the rainbow to have as much of that kitty as you can. So we do preach it, but there's a reason for it. I'm not trying to just toot our own horn here. It's valuable modern entrepreneurship. This can come into play, but your interest is you can write it off. So you have, do you have offsetting income for it? Is that useful for you or not? I mean, that's a question you can have to work out with your CFO or whoever you're working with as an accounting consultant on that side. What is your balance sheet debt stack look like for future funding? So, if you are going to be doing a bigger round, say you're going to be doing a $3 million debt round, or even a $3 million equity round with some debt in 2 months' time, be cognizant of taking on a $100,000 secured debt creditor who's going to be ranking ahead of these guys, and how comfortable these guys are going to be. So if you have a plan, and I hope you all do have some plan as to what your capital needs are going to be over the next 12 to 24 months, keep in mind, what that debt stack is going to do. If you're going to bring someone on now, how is that going to affect the likelihood that someone down the line is going to want to do the deal more or less? And is it worth maybe pausing and doing the bigger deal first and then coming on? And so keeping that stuff in mind as to how it affects and flows throughout the process of your capital raise is fairly important. If you already have lenders, then you're going to need priority agreements. You're going to need subordination agreements, anything else that might have intercreditor relationships. So that's something off the bat, and we'll talk about diligence best practices on how to answer these questions with debt providers or with equity providers to keep them informed, so that this comes up early and not a surprise when the lawyers pull it. But this is something you want to keep in mind as well. How's your debt being charged? Is it fixed versus variable? We're in a hyper low, almost free money debt environment right now with some of these rates on the variable side. But what's going to happen 3-4 years down the road if we have an explosion out of COVID and the economy is ripping in 3 or 4 years and rates jump back up to say north of 3 or 4%. It changes fast. So keeping in mind again with your life cycle, your product, how am I incorporating all these things and am I aware? And if you hate the stuff, that's totally fair. Find someone who likes this. Find a CFO or a drop-in CFO or a really good equity partner that wants to work with you and helping you on the financial side, because this can make a big difference. And much like retirement savings, time is everything. The more you plan this out, the easier it is down the road for you. Term and early payouts. Prepayment terms are really important to look at. So if you are doing bridge financing or you're taking debt financing for a short-term venture, you're going to make a payment out of this in 5 months. So you say you're doing a purchase order financing, you're waiting to take money in to go put an order in for your factory over in Asia. It's going to be drop shipped over in 2 months, and then you're going to get paid net 30. So you're 4 to 5 months off payment. You want to make sure you can pay early. They're not locked into a year of debt you have to pay, so that you might have the money in 4 or 5 months. You want to pay off the loan, but they're saying, well, no, there's going to be a big penalty to pay out early. So make sure you understand those terms when you go into those debt deals, and make sure it reflects how you imagine getting out of the deal in your end as well. The last one's more kind of when you start dealing with hybrid deals or venture debt guys like ourselves. If you look at the rate and you go, man, that rate's a little high. There are ways to play with it, right? There are levers to pull. So if you go, maybe we'll take warrants on the deal, and that will knock off bips off the rate, or you can make it a convertible with half of it going there, then we'll convert to equity and half going to debt. So you kind of blend that way. Try to be creative. If you're not dealing with a bank and you're dealing with a private lender, they're private in the sense that they're not reporting to a very, very strict investment committee. They're usually able to do creative solutions, creative structuring. Test them. See if there's something that would work for you, and see if they can do that and if it will work for them. That's the value of having someone who has seen multiple of these deals. They can get creative, and they get creative fast for you. Okay, so what is venture debt? It can be a mixture of things. It's kind of somewhat of a new term, so there's no hard definition of it, but really what it is someone who wants to be involved in the equity, in the venture capital side of their company, but also wants to bring in different parts of that capital structure. So for us, what we try to do is we have 3 levers we can pull. So if you come and say, hey, look, here's my plan to get to go to market plan. We need to have $500,000 for this year, 2021, to get the staff, to build a factory up, to do the leasehold improvements, to get to the point where we can actually start producing things, whatever it may be. We need 500 grand. Here's what we have. Here's our asset list. Here's what we have for grants. Here's the one purchase order we have over here. That allows us then to go term sheet you with a couple options, right? We could say, well, maybe, if you haven't got tax credits, we've identified a tax credit you should go get, because the first place you should go take money is the government, 100%, before anyone else. We are blessed to live in a very, very social or forward country in the fact that we have a lot of these programs and they're sizable. Take advantage of them. Otherwise it's going to go somewhere else, right? So my first iteration would say, go find a tax consultant or a grant consultant if you don't happen to have one currently. They all work on, well, most of them work on contingency. So if you don't happen to talk to a Deloitte or one of the big fours, or an Amy who specializes in this, go talk to them. They'll have a conversation with you for free. They'll walk through your company and go, hey, you should be claiming this, or this is a program that's opened up in your province for that. There's a clean energy program that's opening up next month. You should look at for this. Explore all those free options first. It's free money, and that can really bring down your weighted average cost of capital, because all of a sudden you have free money, debt money, equity money. This is a zero, right? So it's going to come down. So utilize those first. And like I said, they work in contingency, a lot of these consultants. So they're not going to charge you $1 unless they get $1 back for you. So it's a free conversation. It's worth having. And I would go there first. And then I would say, so, we can finance against those because some of them will take 6 months or 7 months to get back from CRA. That's something we can finance up front. The second one would be commercial lending. So, traditional stuff you would think of for lending. If you have purchase orders, accounts receivable, you might have a piece of land, you might have, a big piece of machinery you bought, some digger or something like that. We can look at that as well. And the last one would be equity. So this would be what you would consider, whether it's safes or whether it's convertible notes or straight equity investment. That's a third bucket. So venture debt is the ability to then hybrid all three of these together. So it could be a mixture of like, okay, great, well, the low hanging fruit is, you need 500 grand, you're getting 200 grand over here from the government, we'll finance 200 grand against that. You have your first purchase order for 150, but you can do 100 against that. So now you're at 300. Now you're down to 200 grand here. Maybe we'll do 75 equity. We have a partner who can come in here. And now we're starting to move the needle of what we're doing here. And it all comes down to, again, lowering that weighted cost of capital for you guys, so that if you have a successful business, you can keep more and more of your business with it. We'll win too. I mean, if you're dealing with a VC who's greedy, we're just there to win and win fast. So keep that in mind too, that if you get someone who's trying to grab something for the sake of just grabbing it from you and they don't want to kind of budge on it, that's something to be kind of to be leery of as well. Why is debt particularly relevant in Canadian markets? This is what my team put there as just grants, and I thought it was good enough to just talk about, because this is something that is not utilized enough. And I think this is slide here next. Yeah, Shred's $5 billion. Go get some of it. Like if you're doing R&D and it's pretty loose, it's, are you trying to solve a problem that has no current technical solution, which I'm hoping a lot of you are doing, in innovation and tech. You get 35 to 40% of whatever you spend back a year, cash. Go get it, and you can claim back 18 months. So that's kind of the first place I'd step. There are tons, if you're doing exports to the US or exports to the Middle East or to Asia, go get EDC insurance. We can finance that. Like there is tons of programs out there the government is trying to utilize now more than ever as they try to bring the economy back, to get money. The common problem with a lot of these programs is, of course, there's a delay in which you apply for it and when CRA pays you. And that's what I want to, really use or leverage our products in is, writing debt against this stuff. So, being able to go and get the shred money today, reinvest it today so you can get more shred money next year before CRA gives you the money back. Like stuff like that becomes very powerful. You do that 3 or 4 times, you could bring forward your cycle a year on development, right? Because you can put the money to work faster. There's other programs, for example, IRAP or programs in which they'll say, we'll give you $1 million when you hit this deadline. We can advance against that if we're confident you can hit those deadlines. Other programs will be matching funds. So some programs will say, we'll contribute 500 grand. If you contribute 500 grand, we'll put up 500 grand for you so you can unlock that 500 grand. That's stuff we can do as well. But the key thing here is there's tons of these government programs, and it's very, I won't say novel, but it's becoming more and more prevalent for us to lend against this stuff in Canada and utilize it because, again, it's free money. So it's the best place to start. What does due diligence preparation for raising debt and equity look like? Very, very simple for diligence off the bat. We're going to want to see financials, whether it's debt or equity. We're going to want to see interim financials and your last year ends. Now, they don't have to be perfect. We want to see where you are. And, we want them sooner rather than later. So don't delay goal. We'll try to scramble and get them together. Get us them fast. We'll understand what's going on. If there's commentary there, we'll read into it. We'll talk to you about it. It should be a conversation. It shouldn't be just send it and hope that they understand what's going on. There should be some dialogue there. Specifically for grants and stuff, we're going to see tax forms. Generally, any debt stuff, they're going to want to make sure that your payroll taxes are up to date. The one person that always outranks any debt holder is CRA. So we want to make sure that you're paying your payroll taxes, that's all up to date. Projections. So we want to make sure that there's some thought and effort into how your next 6 to 12 months are going to go. That we understand what your runway looks like now, and what it might look like in 6 months, and why it's going to be on. Can I help bring that through faster? That's the conversation there. And is there a way for us to jump in? Oh, can you guys hear me? Because this is my internet connection's unstable. Just want to double check. Meg, maybe give me a little thumbs.
Yeah, I was having that issue too, but seems to be better now.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then security. So we want to see the security documents, relevant to whether that's a grant. So if you have a grant application, that's perfect. If you are doing purchase orders, we want to see the purchase orders. We want to see evidence of, have you done them with these guys before? So it's really storytelling for us to figure out how best to serve you. On the equity side, we're going to want to see key contracts, marketing, and your current cap table, in addition to whatever you can see there. But generally what's going to happen in any of these conversations is you're going to have an intro phone call with whoever the party is. They're going to kind of walk through your business, what do you need your capital for, have that conversation about, hey, have you thought about doing this way? And then they'll ask for documents after. So you're going to get a list. And my biggest suggestion, it might be hereafter, best practices, package your docs together. Please do this. Unless they say, please give us this immediately after the call. There's a massive level of confidence that comes from an entrepreneur when we give you a document list and you go, great, you take 2 or 3 days, you send us a zip file and it's got like 1.1 financial statements, 1.2, purchase orders, like whatever, maybe it's organized and thought out and concise and complete. Versus we've seen entrepreneurs go, here's a photo of an invoice I sent out last week. Here's a scan of the balance sheet. I'll give you the income statement tomorrow. Like stuff like that. We've seen this many times, and it's an immediate red flag on organization, on knowledge of what we want to see as a partner. It's scary. So think that through. Unless they say specifically, oh great, can you send us that one piece after this call? Put it all together, give it to us at once. Let us take the time to look through together. It's a lot easier for us to rip through the file, give you a fast answer versus getting half of it last week, having to reopen the next week and go, whoa, okay, what was the deal again? What are they doing? And we're doing it twice. And that doesn't help anyone move forward quickly. Be open and honest about contracts development progress. The story will tell itself, right? Documents are either executed or they're not. There's either a story there or there's not. So it allows us to understand quickly what's going on when you're open and upfront about it, but it also allows us to then maybe suggest other additional resources or maybe even partners we can help you work with to move through on some of these problems you have. So, and that's part of picking a partner that you're going to find debt or equity from is someone who's actually going to suggest things or help you out with a partner they have. It's going to help you drive your deal forward as opposed to just give you a term sheet, ask for the interest rate, and say pay us when you're done. We have a vested interest in you growing, whether that's paying our debt out fast or whether that's you being an equity partner for us and growing and selling and exiting and paying us out down the road. Someone coming in should be a partner with you. They shouldn't feel adversarial. If it feels adversarial, pump the brakes a bit because it's not going to get better. If it starts from a place of adversarial before money exchanges hands, like it's only going to get worse. So really think about that when you're dealing with companies. If we provide tools, if Lender provides tools for you to help figure out if we can do a deal with you, don't circumvent them. Please try to use them. Like, for example, we use a tool called Boss Insights that allows you to upload or essentially to connect your APIs on your financials, your accounting software, your statements, your CRA accounts. We can get a live look in then, and it adjusts all of your for seasonality for us. So a lot of the calculations that take us time to do, it does for us, so that we can get you an answer faster. Going around that just makes our lives more difficult. Then you might have an angry analyst calling me and saying, "What's going on with this company? Why won't they follow directions?" And then it becomes, you don't want a bad taste in anyone's mouth who's trying to give you money. Let's put it that way. So try to use the tools that they can that they're offered to you, no matter what they are. Plan your capital rollout. If you're going to say, hey, I need 700 grand to go, get my MVP, get out the door, that's my budget for what I need for the year. Know how much, when, and why you're going to need it. If someone comes to me and says, I need 700 grand, but I need 200 grand next week, 100 grand, in a month from now, 150 the following month, and there's a plan for it, there's a plan rolled out, like, okay, we need money to go buy tooling and staff now, then we need to go buy, hard assets to go put into here. There's a plan I can see. It's cheaper for you because you're going to actually spread out when you're taking money, when you're going to pay for it. But also then it gives us confidence that there's a plan and process in place here versus, well, I know I need 750. I don't really know how I'm going to spend it for the next 3 months, but I want it in my bank account today and I don't care if I pay interest on it. That's scary. Much more scary for us to go down the road with. So if you're going to ask for money, know when, how much, why, how you're going to need it. And it could be you need it all up front. Could be complete sense, right? But have that story to tell on the call. And then ask questions. If you have any questions about, why are we structuring this way, or the legal docs, what does this covenant mean? How long is this process going to take? Ask questions. Communication breeds confidence in the partnership. That you have some idea as to what you want to do. That you are not going to just say yes to get money. That there's some thought on your end. That you care about how it's going to cost my business money, or how why am I giving up this much equity? Like, if you care about what you're doing, it breeds a lot of confidence in your business, right? So ask questions, if you feel uncomfortable, tell them, push back. Again, it's a partnership and not a dictatorship, especially with VCs and venture debt people. This is not going to the bank and it's RBC's way or the highway. There should be some pushback on getting the deal done and even work faster. Of course we can. Push us on if you need it as well. And if we can't, we'll let you know in an open conversation as well. We kind of talked a lot about this. What should I look for in a lender investor? What do they look for? Is there a slide here? But really, again, if it feels adversarial from the start, again, it's not going to get better when money changes hands. It could get a little more gruesome. So it should feel like a partnership. It should feel like they're asking questions that are probing you to think about your business as well. Vice versa. If you have a concern, why is this way? Or why do you need to structure it for 18 months? Can we do a 6-month loan? Can we do, prepayment, for example? Hey, I know I'm going to get paid in 6 months. You have it as a 12-month payment period. Can I make it 6 months and see what they say? Like, there should be a back and forth there on that side. Another thing to look for too is if you are in a specific space, if you're a medtech deal and you're looking for an equity investor, don't blanket email everyone. Go look for people who have done medtech deals. They're going to be faster in diligence. They're going to have better partnerships out of the way. It's going to be a better deal for everyone involved. One caveat there is, if you are trying to get money from someone who may have invested in a competitor of yours, that can be a bit of a sticky situation. And some companies will do it. Some investors won't do it. It's a hard no for them. So don't be offended if you go down that road and you hear that. It's a common pushback you might get. What else that's kind of it. I would say be cognizant of how, and you can find a lot of this out too. I don't know if you have access to PitchBook or other stuff as to who's going into what deals, but just be cognizant of where they invested before, the size of the investments they've done, have they done follow-ons. You can find a lot of this out online. So you have a bit of background as to how might they want to structure this deal? Will that fit with how I want to do the deal? And then when you have those follow-up conversations, when you want to push them on stuff, it could be as simple as, hey, I noticed you've done a deal in the space before with this company, and structured this way. I noticed you're coming to me with a different deal this way. Can we make it more like this deal? Because that's why I came to you, right? That's great research on your part. It's confidence building to the investor that, hey, they know what they want. They sought me out. They want me. They want to do it a certain way. I might be more lenient to come back this way. Or they might say, that deal burnt us because of this. We're doing it this way because this way now. It's better for both of us and educate you on that. So open dialogue and kind of really do the research you can. But really, again, don't blanket email everybody. It's a little small world and people do talk about, hey, we've all received this email. So with that, there are some slides on bringing this forward, but I talked about that. Really speed is everything in this industry. So our whole things, we can get you debt fast. These are more personal. Please come talk to us things, terms, but I really want to spend time on questions while I have some free time here. Finished a little early, so maybe I'll open it up now. Meg, I don't know if you see any, maybe I'll end the presentation so I can see them too, actually. Maybe that's probably the best way to do this. And I could go into, I actually don't even have chat. So maybe the VSW team can see chat, or Meg, do you see chat?
We have no chat. We have no Q&A, but I put my own note in the chat just to tell people that even if they don't have questions, but rather stories to share about things that they have learned through various screw ups or wins. We like to hear those as well, and it's great for other people to learn from those types of shares as well. So yeah, feel free to drop anything in the chat or the Q&A there.
If not, it's Friday, and I'm happy to spin out of here.
Yeah, I wonder, last day of an exciting VSW, and everyone's ready for the weekend.
Yeah, Q&A is open, so please try to participate in that if possible.
We'll leave it for 30 seconds here, and then happy to close off. I don't feel offended. Don't worry. You don't need to ask a question to make me feel welcome here, guys. I'm quite content to roll on with Friday, and I'm sure everyone else is too. Wonderful. I think that might be it then. Unless you want to pause me, Meg? No?
I think we're good.
Awesome. I'm must have covered
People
it
are
all.
just saying,
how I
that's it. Yeah,
So
no
we
one has
covered all the
questions because
topics.
you explained it all.
Awesome. Well, thank you guys for your time.
Yep.
What I would suggest then is, if you have specific questions or I would say the first step would be if you have questions about where can I go get free grant money, direct them at Meg and her team. If you have specific questions on, hey, how might I approach an entrepreneur or a VC about this, feel free to reach out to myself. And that's a good delineation of where a question should go. Yeah, and happy to be here today. Thank you all for your time, and I'll wrap it up.
Yeah,
We
thanks
do have
everyone
one
for
question
joining
that
us.
came in.
Oh.
You guys like to take it before we end?
Sure.
We have
I
a
can't see
question.
that.
It says, I have a client who may be interested in getting a grant consultant. How would a client go about finding a good one?
Yeah, so best to run through Meg, but I'll kind of give you the quick rundown on it. Regional, so like there's going to be places that, geographically there could be limitations as to where a good consultant may be for you. But there are industry specific ones. So I would say, again, if you're in green energy, there's probably people that are more versed in that, and there are people who simply do software. So industry and geography makes probably the biggest one. And then secondly, I would say get yourself into one of the biggest firms you can, because they have more tentacles. And again, it's a free conversation. And a lot of them, once you're on their mailing lists, you're going to get free emails about all programs that are coming up down the road, right? So tap yourself into any free resources you can, especially we all hate, mailing lists and newsletters, but these are ones that are worth it because it's a mailing list saying, hey, the government's giving out 10 million in clean tech next week, or whatever it may be. Like, these are worth looking at.
Yeah, and we also, like DJ said, reach out if you have any questions. We have a lot of partners that we can refer you on to, and even just a couple of examples of grant finding platforms like Pocketed and what's the other one?
There's a few. I would still strongly suggest going to see a consultant, telling a story. I mean, if you know specifically like a small grant, like some of these hiring grants, it could be worth going through programs. But if you're early stage where you're saying, I have this project I want to do, it's worth going and exploring all the options in a conversation rather than through software, specifically on the bigger ones, because they're going to explore options. But if you go, hey, I know I need XYZ hiring grant, there are specific websites that can help you do that very quickly and a very, very cost effectively, as opposed to going to something like that. So there are options based on what type of grant it is.